Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I am coming to you with all the books that I read in the first half of October, and there are a ton of them. So before I get to the books, this is Alistair. He is one of our two new cats, and both of these two new cats are an awful lot like iPod in that they're always here in my lap. So you'll probably be seeing a lot more of them pretty soon. But anyway, so most of the books that I have to talk about are not books that I have that many thoughts on, so I'm gonna try to make this whole video pretty quick because there are a lot of books here. So I'm gonna start with the ones that I have physical copies here to actually hold up. So the first book that I finished in the month of October, or November, oh my gosh, did I say October this whole time? Anyway, so the first book is Phoenix Rising, the first book in the Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences series. This is basically a Victorian era paranormal-ish detective novel type of thing. So basically it's almost like if you have, you know, your typical cop drama where you have a cop who's a loose cannon and one who's like more by the book and is telling the loose cannon person like, no, wait, don't, what are you doing? That's basically the dynamic that our two main characters have. They're spies for an organization, and they basically they have completely different jobs normally, and normally they would not be people who would be put together for anything, but they do wind up working together, and it just shenanigans ensue, and it's definitely really good. I definitely really enjoyed it. Black Cats and Evil Eyes. This is basically just a book about different superstitions, kind of how they started. It doesn't really go into that much detail on some of them. I mean, each one kind of has different amounts of detail as to what it is and what its origins kind of are, and not all of them necessarily have an equal amount of what the origin actually is, but it is kind of interesting to see that. There is a lot in here about just different things, and some of them are superstitions I had never heard of either. So overall, yeah, this was a really quick read, and it was pretty informative. Storm of Locusts, probably my favorite book of the month so far, by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the second book. This is in the series. The first book is Trail of Lightning. This is kind of a post-apocalyptic / also paranormal ish story. And the main character is so badass. Like, she puts all other badass main characters to shame. I just love her so much. But yeah, we get several characters in this working together, and it's really cool. And I still think I liked the first one better, but overall this book was so good. This series is awesome. Please read it. The Chosen and the Beautiful by Niveau. This is a retelling of The Great Gatsby with an Asian main character. I'm unfortunately not familiar. I'm not too familiar with the story of The Great Gatsby or anything like that. So, I mean, that's one classic I unfortunately never read. So I really don't know what this book is doing, as opposed to like in what way it's challenging the original one or anything like that. But yeah, it's definitely really interesting. I really liked it. That's basically all I have to say about it. The Perfect Assassin by K.A. Dorr. This is a book about basically a clan of assassins who find out that there's an assassin killing assassins, and they're trying to find out who it is. Overall, it's not bad. I did kind of enjoy this book, but overall it was really, I think what was missing for me were any kind of real stakes or real, like, depth to it. It all felt very kind of like there's not a whole lot to it, but it was still pretty good. I still liked it. The Library at Mount Char, possibly, maybe the worst book that I've read this year. In any case, I'm not sure if it's the worst or the second worst book that I've read this year, but it'll definitely be on my worst of the year list. So I didn't even actually finish this book. I think I quit about just over 2/3 of the way in. And the reason why I quit reading it, even though throughout I just could not get into the story overall, but, and there was like no character depth and it was really boring, but the reason why I DNF'd it instead of just pushing through the last third of the book was because there was a lot of insensitive commentary in it. And it's not like the insensitive commentary in it is really even anything that bad compared to the actual, like, really racist or homophobic books that I've read in the past few years. I mean, it's kind of the type of thing where if it had made maybe one of those comments, I probably would have been like, that's pretty messed up, and then I would have, like, kept reading. But because it happened so many times, so again, it's not like it was even saying anything all that bad. It was more kind of like, in the first chapter even, a character goes off on like an internal monologue tangent about how he wants to go to Tibet and join a Buddhist temple because Buddhism is the only religion that's not fucked up. And I just thought that was kind of a messed up thing to not just say, but go on like a 2-paragraph tangent about. There's like a taxi driver who's a flaming stereotype. There's a comment about there's just like an offhand comment about 2 black guys who look like twins, and to me that felt like I mean, obviously they actually looked like they looked alike, they were like dressed the same, that type of thing, but to me it felt like in combination with all the other things that are said in this book, it felt to me like a dig at how, how like all black people look the same, which they don't, but like a lot of people who are not black will say that sometimes, and that always makes me really uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, like just because someone's like not white or not the same ethnicity as you think they all like look alike, like that's kind of fucked up. I don't know, so just the fact that like that was said, that the 2 black guys looked like twins, it felt to me like that type of comment, and it was just really weird. And then also there are 2 lions in the story that that play a major role in the book, who are named Dresden and Nagasaki. And yes, they are named after World War II, and yes, that made me feel super uncomfortable. So it's stuff like that that made me feel like I just could not stand reading this book. It was like not like no one comment was like so bad that because I've definitely read so much worse. I've read books that like literally are racist or homophobic and everything, and this was not that bad. It was just the fact that it was never ending. It was like thing after thing made me feel really uncomfortable reading it, and I'd be like, what the fuck? So I just had to stop reading it, basically. And also a ton of animals die in it, so there's that too. So yeah, I really do not recommend this book at all. This Woven Kingdom by Tahir Mafi. This is a Persian-inspired fantasy book by a Persian author. We don't get a whole lot of those. I can really only think of one other one, which is sitting on my shelf right there. It was really good. I definitely did really like it. There were some things that felt really typical, but that's just because this is YA, so that happens a lot. So I'm not really docking it any points for that. Overall, I enjoyed this book. It was pretty good. Beasts of Ruin by Ayana Gray. This is the sequel to Beasts of Prey. This was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I think it actually blew the first book out of the water. I think it dealt with a lot of really hard topics. So one story we get in it is there's a main character who is basically rejecting her heritage because she's trying to seem cool, because she's a teenager, and what do teenagers want to do? Not be bullied or outcasted, and they want to have a normal life, and they lose sight of what might actually really matter and all of that, and so a lot of people actually do that. And yeah, so I thought that was a really gripping story, and overall the whole story was just really good. It definitely, because I think the first book you're still kind of figuring out the story and what's going on, but this one really had a lot more to do with the actual human to human conflicts that were happening, and I really enjoyed that. And then We Free the Stars by Hafsa Faisal. This is a sequel that unfortunately I was a bit disappointed in compared to the first one. This is the sequel to We Hunt the Flame. And unfortunately, I think what I didn't like about it is that the main characters, aside from the two main characters, are no longer in the story hardly at all. And they were the ones that made the story so interesting. So with with all of them basically gone from the story, and the story just revolving around the two main characters, it was not as interesting. And this is not that action-packed or conflict-ridden of a series anyway. So I think that, like, it was really the character depth and character personalities that made me like the first book so much, and without that, it fell flat. So, but although the writing is still really good, I definitely still applaud her for that. And so overall, the series is not bad, but I didn't think that this book was as good as the first one. Then I went to Kumoricon and I hung out in the manga library for a bit, and that was really fun. So I read a ton of manga. So I was only there for the one day, but in between panels and after all the panels I was in were like done, I basically hung out in the manga library for an additional like 2 hours and just read a ton of manga. So basically, I read the first 2 volumes of The Promised Neverland, which is about these kids in an orphanage who, when they go to foster homes, they think they're going to foster homes, but it turns out that when the kids are each like gone to foster homes, they're actually getting eaten by monsters. So basically their orphanage is like a farm for like child meat, essentially. So it's just so weird. And yeah, so these 3 kids find out what's going on, and they start trying to figure out how to escape and how to get everybody out of there. And it's really creepy and it's really good. I'm too afraid to watch the anime of it, so I figured reading the manga was probably a safe bet. And then I read several volumes of Inuyasha that were basically all in the middle. I read like numbers 13 through like 20 something, and then 20 something through 20 something. I've skipped a couple in there because they didn't have all of them in the manga library, but basically this manga series and this anime were basically my life when I was like 13 and 14 and I was first getting into anime. I still think that this series holds up pretty well. There's some stuff about it that doesn't, but overall, like, yeah, good series. Also, it was kind of funny because my favorite panel that I went to at Kumoricon was about supernatural cats, and like the origin of the supernatural cats in Japanese folklore. And upon immediately after exiting that panel, going to the manga library and reading Inuyasha, I realized that Kirara from Inuyasha is actually a combination of 2 of those cats. So it's kind of interesting once you like know that stuff, you can kind of notice it, all of that. But anyway, so those are the books that I read in the latter half, or the first half of November. So I read a ton of books. I'm way caught up on my goal now. I'm actually almost to my goal. I only have to read like another 9 books this year, and right now we're only halfway through November, so that's pretty awesome. It gives me some room to maybe read some thicker books and not necessarily just concentrate on the short ones, because there are definitely some thicker books that I'd like to get to by the end of the year. But anyway, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!